Welcome to the Panic Button, everyone. I'm Nina.
I'm Jessie.
And today we have a guest with us.
Yeah, and this is Kevin. And we're going to have Kevin introduce himself.
Why, hello, I am Kevin. I'm from the No Prisoners podcast. I'm a co-host. And I'm here to have a talk today with both Nina and Jessie. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, Kevin, you are a detransitioner.
Okay, let's see. Detransitioner. Am I a detransitioner? In what sense of the word? Societally, the way I understand how the community, how they break down detransitioning is a curiosity to me, because what I am is a male eunuch is what I am. There's nothing to detransition back to, except for, everything that you can see when I have my clothing on.
Yeah,
like socially detransitioned, but you still have the effects of the transition from your body. Still.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And as far as the system that's in place, let's say system is in place for transitioning, do you think it's a good system?
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's a good system. I
don't think that you had any desire to become a male eunuch. So, like long term, that was not the goal.
Right.
So,
you would be correct. It was not my desired outcome to become a eunuch. That is true. Yes.
And so I would assume that a flawed system would probably lead to something like that happening. But I'm curious as to how long ago you began to have these feelings and what the process looked like for you, because obviously today it's not the greatest. So I just curious about the timestamps on what you experienced.
Well, let's see. Going back to childhood and understanding that I come from a mindset that children are not sexual beings. However, children can experiment with things like their mother's pumps.
Yeah.
Or, trying on different clothing and stuff like that, or taking cues from adults and trying to figure themselves out, like where they fit into society. That part I get. I did have periods, like the playing with dolls or expressing something that might be considered a little bit feminine and such. However, as a child, I wasn't sexual. So I wasn't, how do I say, I wasn't expressing that aspect of gender expression. I was just more or less like curious. Like I had sister, so I played with her toys. Conversely, my sister also played with my toys.
Right.
So we just shared each other's things. And that, as far as identifying into a feminine space, that would have, let's see, that would have been into adulthood. That would have, well, let's see, let me be completely honest. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and I joined the military. I joined the United States Army. Okay. When I got to permanent party, I was taken in by a sergeant who, and at the time I was 18, and took me to Austin, Texas, and was grooming me into making money through adult entertainment. And that involved getting me a false identification and then giving me to a handler. And at first, it was more about male presentation in the adult spaces for older gentlemen. And then by the time I hit 25, the handlers had me switch into drag performances. At which point, that was meant to, how should I say, attract younger people into the business, more or less.
Diversify your clientele, for lack of better terms. You bring more people in.
Yeah. So I wasn't I wasn't committed so much to living as a woman. It was business. It wasn't until much later, after serving in Desert Storm and coming back, and then having mental issues from partially from my upbringing and then partially from the trauma of serving in battle,
I'm sure also
that
with
I was,
going to
pardon me?
the clubs. I'm sure also with all the interactions from the grooming and handling also probably gave you
Yeah.
some comorbidities on top of that. Something to also add to the fire, just to not have a better word for it. But
Oh yes, yes. There with that scene, there were a number of alcohol, drugs, just different things that the handlers would use to get us to
Mhm.
perform and
Mhm.
Yep.
such, to loosen us up, to get us into a mindset where we could detach from what we were doing, because it's an ugly life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So later, when I sought help because I could detect I was having a downward spiral,
Mhm.
I was being treated for anxiety, depression, and borderline personality disorder due to shaky foundations in my upbringing and all the things I had gone through. And then at some point in my therapist suggested that I might be transgender. And the promise was that by pursuing, well, how do I put this? By manifesting my feminine side,
Mhm.
I could go forward as a female. And at the time, it seemed like a good idea. In my therapy, it was like, okay, so you mean I can detach from Kevin and become a new person called Cassandra, and I could leave my old self behind and continue my life as this new person.
So did your therapist, like, implant that in your head in your therapy sessions?
My
Or was this
therapist
something
would my therapist would ask me like about eyeshadow. I At the time, let's see, this was around the early 2000s,
Yeah.
Okay.
and men were wearing the darker taupe or brown eyeshadows
Mhm.
and such in fashion magazines,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then it's like that was just part of like male makeup. However,
Yeah.
my therapist suggested that maybe by my wearing things which are typically designated for female, that
Yeah.
I might actually have latent transsexuality.
It's interesting that that's something that they connect because I've known quite a few gay men in my life that I've been friends with who like they'd try my dresses, they'd want to do makeup, they'd do their nails, they'd go out with me and get their nails done. And, maybe some of them have like some signs of gender dysphoria, but I think a lot of them are really happy just being gay men and like dressing up. I mean, dressing up is not something that's exclusive to females.
Right.
And your feminine side shouldn't encapsulate changing who you are completely. You can embrace your feminine side and not touch yourself with a needle or a scalpel or anything and completely embrace both sides of you. I also think that like the idea of erasing everything that you were at once. It's an appealing idea to a lot of people to restart, to kind of hit that refresh button on your life and forget everything you went through. And so it's really I've been in therapy for a few years also. My therapist
Mhm.
is very much not along the lines of like, oh well, you should consider that or that, which I appreciate because it seems like a lot of these therapists are very like, oh, we can just restart everything. Nothing really matters. We could just kind of focus in on this and maybe transition and whatever you think is wrong, we can just do a little doop, we could just change that with this and forget it all even happened. And it seems like that was kind of what they were trying to do with your situation. It's like, okay, maybe even you'd be safer emotionally as a woman. So maybe we could pursue that field. And it just seems like it did more damage than any good.
But surprising it happened as
And the
early as the
yeah.
early 2000s.
It it began around that time. I believe, if I remember correctly, I was going through the psychological transition period for about 1 year, if that, before I was put on spironolactone, which is used to decrease testosterone. And shortly thereafter, I think it was like another 8 months. And then I was put on estradiol.
Now, just out of
And
sorry.
yes, and
No,
no,
go
it's
ahead.
fine.
Out of curiosity, when you guys were you and your therapist were diving into the more feminine side, did you guys ever touch on the comorbidities that you had going on, the things causing the anxiety and depression, or was it really a focus on the transition?
I think by 2008, I believe, if I remember correctly, because this is quite some time ago, we were still working with dialectical behavior therapy as a remedy for borderline personality disorder. And it was around 2008 when we shifted away from DBT and started looking at the actual transition process. So I may have misspoke when I said it was early 2000. It was
Okay.
closer to the end, closer to 2010
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
when it actually went into the full transition started at that point.
Which I'd say still slightly premature. Around 2015, I think it really had its kickoff.
Yeah.
But it still was like probably the early days of people really believing in that.
The um yeah, where it started becoming really, really popular amongst adults, and then the children thing kind of snuck its way in there. But I'm wondering if this was like planned by I don't know, activists or therapists. It seems like it was embedded within the medical system before it became popular and mainstream. But I could be wrong.
Well, would it
That
be safe to say that you felt coerced into the transitioning? Did you feel like it was an idea planted there, or something that you felt like you should do?
I felt like it wasn't met with any resistance. It was
Mm.
suggested, and then I was like, "Do you think so?" It was more like a question back to my therapist, like, "Do you think so?" And he was like, "Well, you do have some feminine mannerisms. You do wear the eyeshadow, and you have done drag, so probably."
Hmm.
Wow.
I feel like that could also be a projection of his view of masculinity onto what your life has been. Like, just because he doesn't wear eyeshadow or, A, B, and C, D doesn't mean that makes you trans. But it's interesting to see that that's the mindset.
That's the first thing he
Yeah.
went to?
That it was after we had had several therapy sessions. I mean, he had been my therapist for several years,
Yeah. Yeah. So
and
long
then
history.
we had quite a history between doctor and patient. And then when the transgender idea was brought up, and that it may actually be the root of my other issues, I just readily accepted it because I was like, okay, well, you know,
He knows
I
best?
want to be happy. And it's
Right.
like, you're the doctor. Yeah, you're the
Yeah,
doctor.
you must know.
You're
You've
the
been with
one
me
who's a
however long.
professional. So I trust my doctor
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
case. And then we started with the next portion of the therapy, which is meeting the next set of therapists who then work with the speech pathology and the mannerisms, and then meeting an endocrinologist to adjust my hormone levels. And it was about 8 months, I think, into it. There were things going on with the chemical portion of the transition. I
Mhm.
was beginning to notice changes in how I felt about my husband. There was
Yeah.
a lack of drive to meet his desires,
Mhm.
and there was definitely some fat redistribution going on that I
Yep.
I was like, okay, well, this is happening.
Right.
And the my libido had dropped like significantly. So I was beginning to wonder if I really wanted to live like this. So I brought it to my endocrinologist. I was like, I'm having issues with orgasm, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I'm in a relationship. I'm in a monogamous relationship with
Yeah.
my husband. We're married. It's like I
Yeah.
want to be meeting his needs. However, in my mind now, things aren't working that way any longer. It's like I'm
You're
not
right.
able to bring myself to any amount of connection to the person I love. I'm
Right.
like, is this normal? It's like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I was like, but I
You
am
are
worried
worrying
about it.
about it.
Right.
I am
This is
worried
you
about it.
worrying.
This is a concern.
Yeah.
It's like, is this going to pass? It's like, it's just temporary. Don't worry about it. Like, okay. So at one point I said, I kind of want to stop this transition. And they were like, well, you don't want to mess with your hormones. That can be dangerous.
Well, you should
Like,
have said
well,
that.
it's like, but it's like, I still have the opportunity. It's like,
Back
I don't
up.
have to go through with this.
Right.
It's like, well, if you don't go through with this, then this is not going to resolve your issue. It's like, you want to be happy, don't you? It's like, well, yeah, I want to be happy.
But I'm
It's
currently not
like,
happy, and I don't think this is going to lead to happiness. Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting that they push
I'm
you.
having doubts. I'm
Right.
having doubts about this transition. Is it like maybe this isn't like really for me? It's like, no. You're just having a blue moment.
Cold feet in the middle of the process. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And at this point, I hadn't undergone any surgery yet. And I was like, okay, well, if you're sure, because again, I'm trusting my care team. Because now I'm not just dealing with my therapist.
Right. You have
I'm
a
dealing
whole
with my
staff.
therapist and I have a team.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
that
like
all costs
rooting for
money.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
the money, the aspect of that, yeah, that is a real thing. That is a real thing. At the same time, we have Caitlyn Jenner coming out.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, around the same time, we have I Am Jazz coming out, which I did not, which when I first saw that, I was like, this is weird. Looking at the Learning Channel and seeing a child going through this. And again, I'm still in the mindset though, but that is a doctor.
Right. And
And
that's the
I
whole reason that
trust,
everyone watches it, is because they're like, it's we got it, it's professional. They're letting it happen.
They know best, right?
That's crazy.
right. And so then after, let's see, a few more months of this, I find myself on the operating table and I'm having lower surgeries done. And I remember waking up from my surgery and just like looking at my husband and just crying. I was like, what have I done? It's like, what have I done? And it wasn't that, what it's like, I can't come back from this. That's the first thing I thought is like, well, it's done now. I can't come back from it. So now I'm committed. And
That's got to be a wild moment, just to sit there and
it was,
realize it's
like,
it's done.
I'm still under anesthesia. I'm coming out of anesthesia. I can't feel anything because I'm like numb.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm touching down by my pelvic area and I'm just feeling like this like padding and stuff. And I have no idea what any of this stuff looks like. And then I remember the first time I got to see what it all looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't look like anything that I'd ever seen on a female before. And that was, I was like, I looked at myself and I was like, honey, I've been mutilated. And then shortly thereafter, then the infection came, the first infection. And I remember the look on the nurse's face when she had to look at the infection. And she's like looking at me. And I had like longer hair.
Mm.
I had like a little bit of makeup on and stuff. And yet the rest of my body, it's like saying, this is a male body which has been altered with hormones. It's presenting somewhere, I don't even know where, but the look on her face said, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And not at the infection either, but at the whole thing was just kind of like, this is what we're doing.
Right. Like, what did they do to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did they give you any other? Did they just pretty much state to you that transition transitioning is the only thing that's going to save you, like going to save your mental health.
I said it would make you happy, right? So they
Well,
tried to
prior
sell
to
you
that,
a ticket.
yeah, prior to that, I had a predisposition for self-harm and I had
Mhm.
suicidal ideation. And so I was told that by going through the transition, those feelings would leave. And after having gone under the knife, there was definitely something that clicked in my mind when it came to sanity. People talk about trans erasure.
Yeah.
I want to say, I can't think of any other way to erase oneself than to go under these procedures and then give yourself a dead name. I mean, that's an erasure right there. Later on, while I'm in this process of going back to being Kevin, I asked my therapist, why didn't you just affirm my original gender? It's like, why do I have to, why did I have to go through all this to realize I should have just loved who I was in the beginning?
It's a fair
Because
fucking
it really is
question.
as simple as that. It
Yeah.
really is as
Mhm.
simple as that. Just
Mhm.
love yourself to begin with.
What the
Like, who
therapist
cares if
say?
yeah, that's the real question.
So,
Oh, what did the therapist say when you asked that?
oh, trying to remember, was that in part of the video I sent to you?
Yeah, you watch that, I know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was one of the videos. I didn't send you the other ones, but they didn't have the face blurred out on the other ones.
Yeah.
Um, what did my therapist? It was just more like, well, I don't know. It's just kind of like they didn't really have an answer for me. Why they just didn't affirm who I was. They took the question and put it in my file, never really supplied an answer to it.
I've seen just on a similar topic. I've seen, especially with the mental health, you get a mix and match of mental health providers, be it therapists, psychologists, whatever. You just you were mentioning his video to me the other day
Mhm.
about his therapist, and
Yeah.
I had an ex within recent years, like 2018, 2019, who went to a psychiatrist. She ended up having Asperger's, but the psychiatrist wrote down that she had an unnatural attraction to females in 2019 in her file. Long story short, her primary doctor canned him, wouldn't use him again as a resource. But it seems like a lot of them can project either their views of masculine and feminine onto people and then
Mhm.
change from there, or whatever the case is. But I think that in a society where, what is the third wave feminism at this point?
I think so.
It's actually very detrimental trying to, like, put masculine and feminine traits in these categories when we should just allow people, if you wanna wear makeup and wear dresses, male and woman, whatever, do what you want, but maybe leave your body alone and do whatever your personality is. It doesn't your physical attributes have nothing to like, I could love basketball. I'm never gonna play professional basketball because I'm 5 feet tall, but I can still go out and play basketball. I don't have to get surgeries to elongate my legs. I don't have to do things to change my life. I'm never gonna be a professional basketball player, but I can love the fucking sport.
Yeah.
I don't know why this can't be expressed in the same way with gender, or, like, how you present yourself or what you do. You know what I mean?
I think
It's
it can.
boggling. I think it's boggling that they haven't been, is more or less it, because that's the general like, summary I've gotten from almost everything I've heard when it comes to this gender ideology stuff.
See, I think they should just let people without the chemicals, without the hormonal therapies, and without the surgeries, just let people express themselves how
Absolutely.
these people want to express themselves without, especially, okay, I'm an adult. I made these decisions when, as an adult, and I made a mistake. I can own that. I made a mistake. I made a mistake while under the care of 11 professionals. And that tells me something right there is that not only did I make a mistake, but 11 professionals made a mistake with me.
Yeah.
And then in the end,
They
I got
guided you through it.
diagnosed. They guided me
With
through it, cheered
Yes.
me on with it. And at the
Held your
time,
hand and
and
walked you through it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And ending up now with a diagnosis of internalized transphobia, and this is the part that I'm curious about, is I don't have a hatred for people who are transgender. I don't hate myself for having gone through this.
Mm,
I have regrets, and I have a word of caution when it comes for people, or it comes to people making these kind of life altering decisions. We really need to be told the truth on what happens. It's not just you may be at risk for strokes, blood clots, heart attack, certain cancers, and
yeah.
such like that. It's it's more that what if this doesn't work out for you? Like in my case, I have osteoporosis because of this. So even in my attempts to go back as close as I can be to who I was, also considering my age and being realistic about that, I can't go back to like heavy lifting. While weight training may help
Mm,
in managing osteoporosis because the osteoporosis itself is not reversible, I can't put on a lot of muscle because if I don't have a framework to support it, being my bones,
right.
then my bones will fracture if I
Mhm.
put on too much muscle because
Mhm.
I have limitations now where I didn't have those limitations before. And this is what concerns me about doing this to youth. When it comes down to it, none of this is about me. When it comes down to it, what drives me today is not about my story. It's about what I learned. Maybe it is partially about my story.
Your
I
experience
learned
with
some
it.
things.
Well, you
My
wanna
my
stop people
experience.
from going through what you went through, including the children who don't know what they're doing and can get
Exactly.
misguided by 11, 12, 20, 40 medical professionals who get paid to take your hand and say, "This is what you wanna do, right? Let's go." And it's about you and your experiences and not wanting other people to make the same mistake you made because they weren't informed.
Right. It's
100%.
like I don't mind if you really, really want it and stuff. It's like if you want to do that, you go ahead. I'd say when you're old enough. You can do this when you're older. If you really, really want to do it, if you really want to take the risks and you really want to walk down this path, when
Mhm.
you're older, sure do it. But parents out there, don't do this to your kids. I mean, come on. You're messing with their development. You're messing with their psychology, you're messing with their skeletal structure, you're messing with their potential to ever have a family. I mean, sure, you've got
Mhm.
adoption. I mean, anyone could, well, not anyone could adopt, but most,
Well,
Yeah.
you risk any
it's
satisfying, sexual relationship for them in the future. They will never have a sexual relationship with someone that is, like, satisfying for them, and that's baffling me. You can't even you have to at least let them get to 18 before you start touching them, in my opinion. Like, let
I,
them develop, and then after that, they can choose their path, but at least let them get to 18.
And that is something that concerns me because I experienced that disconnect, that kind of emotional, if one calls it passion, that
Mhm.
kind of thing that I had before, which was removed. And even now, taking testosterone, I don't get those feelings back. I mean, there's been nerve damage, which has happened.
Right.
There are, how do I put this delicately? When you take a male's anatomy and you modify it and you're on estrogen and you no longer have testes and your libido is down and such, things don't really go on down there so much. Now, when you reintroduce testosterone into a modified male body, like this kind of modification, one thing is that when I had the surgery done, I was also undergoing laser hair therapy in the pelvic region amongst the face and all the other things that were going on. So my hairline was different when they brought the knife down. And the testosterone woke some follicles up, which were sleeping while
Yeah.
under estrogen. And that causes a quite a bit of pain, discomfort, and infection, like right there.
Yeah.
Of
And
course.
then even without the attraction, like the biophysiological attraction that men or women may experience, where they experience a certain let's just say erection for men.
Right.
Okay. Even though the penis has been modified and tucked and stitched and stuff, I don't look at someone and have a sexual response. That doesn't mean that the body, when testosterone isn't introduced, doesn't mean that the male body isn't going to undergo certain things that it's going to try to do naturally. Like when a man is sleeping,
Hmm.
erections may happen. When a man has a modified genitalia in the pelvic region and that organ no longer can go where it wants to,
Yeah.
and it's pulling on sutures and trying to do what it did before, but it's like, hello, locked in and stuff,
Right.
along with the awakened follicles and such, that's a rude wake up call right there.
Lots of discomfort, I'm sure.
Lots of discomfort. So it's things to consider. If the transition is not successful, what you're left with in the end will need a bit of maintenance. And psychologically, for a while there, I was definitely depressed, not to the point of, ending my life.
Mhm.
However, I was definitely thinking to myself, what in the world have I done to myself?
But the doctors told you that you would be fine after, right?
Actually, they said
The
you'd be
doctor,
happy.
yeah, yeah. It's not a guaranteed outcome.
Mm.
It's
But
not.
they're
It's not a
so
guarantee.
they're so, like, locked in with that. Like, okay, so did you see the video with, Bill Maher on Pod Save America?
Was that the one with who was that a guy?
Yeah, it was like a
Yeah.
little like mop-headed, dark hair kid talking with Bill Maher on a couch.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I did see it. In fact, I think that that's the video where I responded. If we're talking about the same one,
Yeah.
do you have an example of it?
You could.
Well, I can try finding it. I know
Because I
we
think,
we reacted to it.
Just type in Bill Maher Pod Saves America.
Okay.
Right
Yeah.
there.
Okay, cool. Now let's see. I think it's this one right here. Let me see if I can.
Click. Go.
Oops. Okay. Now I have to add
Yep.
this in. That's
She's-
present.
Yeah,
right?
she's still learning. Sorry. Yeah, that one.
Share screen.
Yeah, you
Okay.
got it. You got it.
Thank you.
You're doing it.
Okay.
There it
John,
is.
love it.
Look at you, professional. You got to play.
I'm
before you
working
leave.
through it. Okay.
oh
So
yes,
Yeah.
you remember this one?
I do.
Okay. So I'm trying to see when he says the crazy part out loud. This fella. Okay, let's see.
Just stay for 1 second.
Okay, I'm kidding.
Unbelievable.
I'm kidding.
All right, no, I know. Okay, a lot of things there. First of all, oof, uh, this is going to sound confrontational. For a long time, people said, "Oh, older gay people are recruiting kids to be gay." And they wouldn't really be gay. It was they were being recruited, they were being groomed, that they were being drawn. That was their conservative position. The Christian right position for a long time was the reason you didn't want to have gay teachers is they're going to recruit. That the gay lifestyle is going to look so enticing and so exciting that it's going to bring these poor defenseless boys, they mostly boys, into the gay lifestyle and destroy their lives. But of course, that wasn't true. Really, all gay teachers were an example,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Look, there are a few examples of people getting older and realizing that they shouldn't have transitioned. That happens. It's real. That's real.
Yeah, more than a few.
But there are also really important surgeries that people get for their heart, and they go wrong, and somebody dies. And nobody says we must stop the cardiologists. No one says we must stop the
Wow.
surgeons. We say let's.
That's your analogy?
Well, my analogy is only that. Wait, let me finish.
I'm just
Can I
saying.
finish?
Huge difference.
No, you're right.
And what you say is, let's make sure that this version of it is being practiced well. We don't get rid of the specific surgery. We don't throw out a whole field of medicine. We say, let's make sure we're doing it in a way that's healthy. The science, the research, all right, makes clear that yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are people practicing it in ways that maybe go too far. But for the most part, study after study shows that gender affirming care saves. Wait, I'm talking. It's my turn. I was so quiet for so long after I interrupted
Well,
a
you
few
weren't,
times.
but okay.
But once I stopped talking, boy, I was good at it. And that gender affirming care saves a lot of lives. And
That part right there.
It took so long to get there.
It did,
Yeah.
but okay.
You could just yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So it saves a lot of lives. Okay, let's work under that premise. Okay. Does it save a lot of lives and increase the quality of one's life? That's the question I would have for that one. Comparing it to heart surgery, where you actually have you can look at the heart doesn't have any feelings of its own,
Right.
and you can assess the health of the heart and say this heart is defective, this heart needs either support or this heart needs to be replaced. This is an organ in the body. This heart does not think for itself. This heart doesn't have to deal with anything because it's not sentient. We're talking about a whole body. We're talking about a whole person.
Yeah.
And heart surgery statistically is necessary because you can clearly see what's happening with the heart. With the mind and one's identity, these things, I mean, shall I bring up what is gender fluidity for the people who say that they will switch between, what do they call it, code switching, or maybe that's the wrong term,
I
but
think it's
switching.
switching genders. One day they're a man, one day they're a woman, but they've always been a woman. Yeah.
Androgyny.
Right.
Mhm.
Androgyny or things like that. It's like, does that require surgery?
Well,
Because
for
you're
some
kind of
they
locking.
would say they do because the women want to get top surgery, but no bottom surgery. That's what they want when they're gender
Non-binary?
fluid, non-binary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
They
then they just
they
want
want it.
to have plastic surgery. They just want
They just
to
want to modify their
wear,
body.
which is, I mean, when one like looks at these kinds of procedures, it's like you're wearing accessories inside of your body, or taking parts of your body away
Yeah.
so you can wear what you want to wear. When it comes down to it, it's all about exterior expression. And
Yeah.
if you're making those kinds of changes, how do you turn it back when you feel like maybe someday you don't want to do that anymore?
Well, I
That's
heard
not.
a woman who was preaching about this in front of a whole group of people, and she was saying, "Well, if you remove your tits, you could just put them back on."
No.
Like, oh, so
doesn't
easy
work
for
a
you.
penis, though. It doesn't work for your vagina.
And how much does that cost? And the pain and all that shit that you have to go through. Like they make it sound so easy.
Well, at the end of the day,
It's not.
At
Right?
the end of the day, gender dysphoria and the surgeries they usually have for gender dysphoria are cosmetic, aesthetic surgeries. So a procedure you have done on your heart is going to save your life, and if it doesn't save your life, you were gonna die anyways. It's not like, oh, I'm so emotional, I'm gonna kill myself. Like with transitioning, it's my heart will give out and I will die regardless of how I feel about living or dying. And so
Mhm.
it's just it's a poor comparison altogether, in my opinion.
But I think these activists see it the same way.
They
Like he sees it the same way.
They
that-
want to, in my opinion, they want to present it that way because they want to elicit such an extreme feeling of, oh my God, they could die. This is so like they can't help it. But
emotional manipulation.
but if you get with the good therapist and someone who like helped you believe in who you are, you
Yes.
would probably be okay with your you even if you have like the genital dysphoria where you're like, I can't look at my genitals. You can
Yeah.
still find ways to cope with that with the proper therapy. And maybe you do need to transition a little bit, but you don't need to go as far as like cutting your body up.
Well, then
to
there's the question of
transition.
how do you find the right therapist that's not going to be pushing some weird shit on you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that comes down to the individual knowing the best for them. But what do you
But if
think?
you're looking towards a therapist, like you don't know what's best for you, so you're looking for someone who can kind of help you figure out how to fix yourself.
Right.
I think today's therapy is very experimental. And I think there's definitely money to be made in this field of therapy. It creates lifelong patience. Like
Yeah.
I could just stop taking the testosterone now. I could and experience all the things that go on with not having anything other than my adrenal glands
Mhm.
creating whatever hormones I need at very, very, very low quantities. And I could experience all that. I don't want at my age, it's like I'm in my mid 50s. I don't want to be completely hormonally deficient. Not right now. That
Why
just
would you
I've
want
still
to?
got,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who would want to. I don't know. I don't want kids getting involved in these hormones and then experiencing like what the post menopausal effects in their 20s.
Oh boy.
Let's say a parent goes and starts transitioning the kid.
Mhm.
And then something happens to the parent or the finances or like whatever. And now the kid can't get access to whatever, whether it be the hormone blocker, whether it be the hormone supplement, what have you. Just not even touching on surgery,
Well,
just
even
touching on what's up.
Oh, I just turned 26, and that's the magical age that cut most people off of their insurance. So, like, for a lot of these people who have been transitioning, they don't have jobs that provide insurance. That's guaranteed. Almost all of the people who've transitioned don't, and so they're going to end up having harder time getting these hormone replacement medications, and they're not going to have coverage for a lot of it because healthcare in America really sucks anyways. So it's setting them up for failure and to have to find like more ways to divert their income into transitioning.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. And the
No.
maintenance for it. I mean, man, let me tell you something. Living as a female expression, I mean, I had to go and still, even with no testosterone, being on estrogen, and this is like after my surgery, I still had to go in to get my laser therapy. It's like, sure, I could like go for electrolysis. I did a little bit of electrolysis. And there are still other things like, what do you want? Head to toe? I mean, maybe not up here. Of course, the hair was looking pretty good. But
Mhm.
like everything else though, it's 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 a head to toe process
Yeah.
because even though not having testosterone did lessen the body hair, there was still body hair in
Mhm.
certain areas. Like the legs still grow like body hair to us, but it's much finer.
Yeah.
Except it needs to be gone. It's okay. Is that a toxic masculine thing to say? Female body hair needs to go.
No,
It might be.
But
all about preference,
I was gonna say
really.
that's perspective and preference, just like what makes you manly, what makes you feminine. Like I'm sure you've seen girls with full pits of put hair,
I
and
have.
you've
I have.
seen women who always are clean shaved, and it comes down to preference. And that I don't think that makes
Yeah.
the women with bushes under their arms any more masculine or feminine than the
Might
ones
be a
who
little
are
bit
shaved.
grosser, but yeah.
yeah. So like,
You know,
and that's
and
an
that's just
opinion.
Yeah.
and that's just it. It's all about like what is generally accepted by society based on like where you are geographically and such.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in the United States over here. So there are certain expectations and it's
Right.
like I'm already living as a woman, but I'm looking like a Helga. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, it's like Germanic Greek. It's like, yeah, clearly I'm a biological woman. I was still, my husband said I was pretty darn passable.
Mhm.
My acquaintances, everything like that. I looked in the mirror though, I was like, nah, dude. It's like this is no, you look interesting. You look interesting. I'm gonna leave it at that. Like you're approachable. But you're still. It's like clearly, it's like you're a guy who's trying to pass as a woman, and when you open your mouth, it's like even with the voice lessons and the speech pathology, I don't use that voice anymore, and I don't know if I even could. And just the amount of
Yeah.
training it took
Yeah.
to present female or feminine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, I asked my therapist, it's like, why did I need all that training? If I was truly transgender,
Right.
why did I need so much help to achieve a feminine expression? It's like, you guys must have known this as me being a patient. Why did none of you stop to like, maybe like, we're really causing this guy more harm than good?
It's
It's like
interesting.
having to,
Yeah.
what is it?
how they even have like down to the speech teacher, the pathology, like you were saying, to even have a medical professional who is like trained in teaching you to do that. You'd think that that would be something that would be falling into your own plate if you're considering yourself to be trans, right? Then you'd think that the speaking aspect at the very least would be one of the things that you'd have to work on personally, like independently of the medical field.
Seems like it's creating more jobs.
But they have an entire person, an entire area to be like, and you're gonna speak like this too, which, like you were saying, it should be something that just naturally happens. Like you don't when you hear like people say you can hear when someone's gay. They
Yeah.
don't train themselves to
Yeah.
talk like that.
Right.
no one trains themselves to be that way. So it's just interesting to me that they haven't even they even have a field to be like, oh no, this is the person who's gonna teach you how to talk like a woman too. It's like you have everything, don't they?
They do now.
Yeah.
They do now. Yes. And that part, like right there, it started dawning on me after a while. And what woke me up most is when I think it was like shortly after that I Am Jazz thing, when I started seeing kids getting involved. It started with kids being involved in the pride parades. I was like, whoa. That was
Yeah, I
like
got a problem with that.
2008 when I noticed that. And I was like, whoa, this is a very adult charged area. It's like kids should
Yeah.
not be around this at all.
It's
And
very
then
predatory. I
Yes?
didn't like it.
yeah, it's like it's not supposed to be. That's just it. It's not supposed to be predatory. It's like when they talk about when that guy was talking about gay teachers and like back in the conservative Christian right and stuff, saying
Yeah.
that gays were out to groom the kids. It they had a point up to a certain point. It's not
Right.
about the gays coming after the kids. It's about the predators coming after the kids. And it doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, or like whatever you are. It's like if you are trying to sexualize kids,
Mhm.
then you are a predator. That is what I have taken from a lot of this. And like I said, it's not about me. It's about what I experienced and what I have a warning about. And there are people out there who are dead set on achieving their fantasies through the bodies of kids. And
Oh,
I'm not for that. I'm not having any part of that. I
Nina
will
likes
not
to
have anything. What's
Nina
that?
used to like to bring up a video of was it an old Pride Parade or something like that where Nambla showed up?
Nambla. That's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah, there's an old Pride Parade.
Man, boy, love.
The like Nambla, who's the man, boy, love or whatever, they showed up at the Pride Parade
Mhm.
and all the gays kicked them out. And
Oh
we
yeah,
always say
yeah.
that, and we always say that we need more of those actions like recorded nowadays, where we're like just kicking the fucking pedophiles out because we're not. 98% of the people who identify as gay don't want anything to do with children, but there are
Or
the
it might be
2%
90%.
predators.
We're not sure.
But they're the predators, and those are the ones that we just need to get the hell out of the group because they're the real problem here. It's not the confused people who don't know what to do with their bodies. It's the pedophiles and the creeps and the people who are way too obsessed with touching children's bodies.
But here's the problem.
What's up?
It's that the whole trans thing has allowed for these creeps to invade.
They use pity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
Emotional
psychologically
manipulation.
manipulated people. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
I said the same
Sorry,
thing.
go
you
on.
did.
You said the same stuff.
Yeah.
okay.
Emotional manipulation. It's so twisted. I saw this guy dressed up as a drag queen at some hearing talking about how he they're stomping on his right to be able to be around children. And I'm like, why do you want to
What are
be
you
around
talking
children?
about? Yeah, where is your right? Where is your right to like do any of that to go and influence children? It's like it's not your right. They have parents for a reason. We used to have things called parental rights. We used to have a thing called CPS that if
Yeah.
you were going and grooming a child, CPS would be called to protect that child. And we used to have a thing where if parents subjected their child to sexual material, I mean, we used to have a thing called rating system. Rated X for one was never meant for children. Rated R was never meant for children, and rated PG was for parental guidance.
It was a 13 years old, I think. It was when I was
There was
11.
also PG-13.
PG-13, that's what it was.
Yeah, but yeah.
We used to
and
have common
hard.
sense.
Where did that go? What
I
happened?
don't know. Well, it's sitting here and there and there. It seems between the three of us right now, and then the panic button audience. I'm sure that the people in the audience have common sense too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does exist still, but we're
And like
being told
clearly
that
with
we're
the
hateful.
election, right? With the election,
maybe-
it
What's that?
showed that
Mm.
common sense is coming back. You know, Trump wouldn't have gotten elected if people weren't all a little sick of this.
Yeah,
So-
but those activists out there's so many in government who are just like, no, we want
Well,
children to
let's
be
take a look at
sexual.
them. Let's take a look at those activists, shall we? Can we just get out here? Hold on one moment. Let me just be a little queen for a bit. Let's just get out that magnifying glass and take a look at these activists.
Jesus Christ.
Sarah McBride, Tim McBride,
Yes.
Representative McBride, yeah.
the one who was reading I Am Jazz to children, talking about how amazing transitioning was and trans people are. And it's like, this is grooming.
Do you
This
have
is-
a clip?
This is not good. Oh, God. Do I? Well, I don't, but I can find one.
Okay.
Let's see. Well,
Let's have a reaction because I don't think I've seen this.
okay.
You want to look up reading?
Yes. Okay. Sarah McMahon reading. Good. Oh,
And we type in I Am Jazz because it was the I Am Jazz book, right? Oh, yeah,
yeah.
that's
I
the
think
one.
it's this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It-
And by the way,
Oh.
while you're pulling that up, my apologies for the slow start. I know I realize how jerky that came off in the beginning.
it's okay. I'm like nervous as shit anytime I have to do these. So I was like, am I saying the right thing? Did I just fuck up?
Open
Nina-
book.
Yeah.
Open book. Just open book over here. So whatever you want to do. Okay.
Okay.
Nina gets direct when she's nervous. The first time I met her, I was like shitting my pants. I was like, "Am I gonna get murdered tonight?" It's crazy. She's
Oh my
very
gosh.
direct. You are. You're very direct. She's like, "Do you want anything to drink?" And I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ!"
I love that.
So here we go.
Okay.
I'll play this one.
I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. Mom and dad took me to meet a new doctor who asked me lots and lots of questions. Afterward, the doctor spoke to my parents and I heard the word transgender for the very first time. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Is that okay? So, I'm like Jazz. When I was born, the doctors and my parents, they all thought that I was a boy. But why? Well, because society, people around them told them that was the case. But it took me getting a little bit older to be able to say that in my heart and in my mind, I knew I was really a girl. And I was very lucky, like Jazz, to have parents who love me and say that I can be whoever I want to be. So I was finally able to be myself.
Okay. And you realized that when you were how old? What?
He didn't transition till after he was in college. He was
Okay.
still
So
gay.
okay.
Married to a trans man.
Okay. I had not seen that. And there is a part of me which was sympathetic to McBride
Mhm.
until I just saw that. It's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You are talking to kids and you are presenting a book written by probably ghost written, or maybe not ghost written, but an autobiography. No, not an autobiography, a biography of a child who was transitioned under the care of
Mm.
his parents into a feminine expression of a child and operated upon mechanically as a
Yeah.
child, making irreversible changes to a child's form, structure, and future. And now, McBride, you are sitting here in front of kids, softening, not even giving the no, where's the informed consent here? Where's the actual education? Where's the actual, like, here are the consequences, by the way. Now that I'm soft selling your kids, parents, thank you very much for bringing your kids to
Right.
my cult moment.
So twisted.
McBride, oh my gosh, you are a sitting member in a government which has a direct influence on the citizens of your jurisdiction. And because you put yourself on this stage, now you put yourself out to the world and you're talking to kids.
Mm-hmm.
With parents who may have psychological aspects of wanting to be accepted by their peers,
Mm-hmm.
they may have unresolved issues of whatever trauma they experienced in high school. I'm being silly by saying that, but let's face it, it's a known trope that
They all
people
have.
tend to have some sort of high school related trauma of popularity, or they didn't make some whatever hole they have in their life. It's like you're having kids
Right.
now to try to fill that hole, and you want to make like a carbon
yeah.
copy of yourself, or you want to make some sort of interesting. You want your child to be interesting so you can live through your kid and stuff. And then you go and throw your child in front of someone like McBride, who is giving a very flowery dissertation on another person's lived experience without being completely honest about what happened to Jazz after the fact.
Right.
It's like, do we want to talk about Jazz's mother going, and on television, mind you, McBride, since you want to use this as your story to these kids, do you want to bring out a dilator now? And do you want to like loop that thing up? Like apparently, I mean, do we have that clip where Jazz's mother is saying, if you don't put this dilator inside you, I'm going to lube it up myself and shove it in you?
That's the first thing I thought of. The second I hear about
that was so rapey. That was so rapey.
And it puts it shows you how much the parents can have a say in transitioning a kid who has nothing, no desire, no real cared for it, just is getting attention from it, and so they're doing it for the parents. That is the most disgusting clip online. I think it's horrifying, and that should have been enough for CPS to just take that woman away right then and there.
Transhausen by proxy.
Transhausen. Oy vey. Okay.
Yeah. So we have McBride talking to kids about this, lying to them. He's lying, and now he's a representative. And
he's definitely not telling them how hard it is for them.
He's obviously an activist, and I have a problem with that kind of activist being in government.
I do too. It's just leave. Okay. I want to say leave the kids alone. And then I understand what kind of equality aspect that means. It means that Christians leave the kids alone. It means everyone else like leave the kids alone. How about this? Let the parents get back to parenting. Let the parents get back to disciplining the kids. It's one thing is discipline, other thing is child abuse. There are clear distinctions between the two. Stop messing with people's kids. And especially when it comes to this whole thing about you can come to school and the teacher will give you something else to wear, or the teacher will call you by a different name, but we won't tell your parents what we're doing with you when you're in our care, because we've got our own thing going on that has nothing to do with actually educating you for your future, which has nothing to do with training you how to be a successful individual or a decent person. I mean, it is not decent to me for adults to mess with a child's inner sense of being. It is not acceptable, in my opinion, to confuse a child into thinking that they need to take drastic steps over what are really just basic fundamentals for natural development. I mean, it's like a kid wants to play with a doll and the kid's a male. All right. So the boy is playing with a doll. So the girl is playing with a truck. It's like we had tomboys back in the day. We didn't go and cut their tits off and put them on puberty blockers. I mean, that would have been monstrous. That would have been heinous. That would have been considered highly abusive back in the day. So why aren't we carrying that forward? Why do we want people to be allowed to make irreversible changes and then lie to us and let them get away with lying to us that these things are reversible? It's like, okay, what studies do you have to show that any of this is reversible. It's like, okay, so you want to say that messing with a child's skeletal structure and the skeletal development is reversible? No. Osteoporosis is manageable, but it is not reversible. You can halt it to a certain degree. However, once the damage is done, you cannot return that structure back to its pristine condition.
Yeah.
Manufacturer default. That's not how this works.
Which is not,
And especially
with the
What's up?
osteoporosis, with the body parts that you're changing too. It's not just like it's not just physical stuff you can see. It's like internal stuff too. You end up fucking with all of your body chemistry, not just the way that
Yeah.
it looks.
But then they'll say, well,
Right.
they'll kill themselves if you don't let them transition at 8 or 15 even. And
Well,
it's
here
the
it
only
is.
thing they have.
They're killing themselves anyway. They're killing these kids anyway. They're killing their potential. They're killing their future. They're killing who they could have been like later. They're removing that very potential. I mean, these hormones cause psychological changes.
Yep.
It can have a direct effect on how, as a person matures, how they will perceive other people in the future, how the relationships are built, because some of these chemicals turn off natural processes in the body. So not only might you be pausing a puberty, which who knows what that's going to do to the physical body, but now you are also turning off the psychological aspects of bond forming.
Yeah. Yes, I remember. I remember reading about that. Like,
Yeah,
there's
it
no,
kills their relationships.
like Jazz, after getting the surgery and
Mhm.
stuff and going through all the hormones, Jazz said that they didn't really have like an attraction anymore.
Because you don't have there's no emotion. You don't have that emotional bonding moment that you would have naturally
physically,
otherwise.
Yeah.
Physically,
Yeah.
physical intimacy is killed.
There are plenty of emotions which remain. I mean, one can be sad, they can be happy. I mean, I can be sad, I can be I'm not going to speak into today's. I can
Right.
be happy, I can be sad. I can't look at my husband anymore with passion. And my husband's very attractive.
Mhm.
I can't
I've
look
never
at
met him,
anybody.
but
You
I'm
could,
sure he is.
what's up?
I've never met him, but I'm sure he is.
He is. I can look at any attractive person, people who would have like used to like elicit some sort of chemical response where I'd be like, feel all the signals of like, oh, that person's like really attractive and stuff like that. Now I just look at beautiful people and I'm like, okay. Okay. It's like, and if I were like younger and if I just looked at people and just, I mean, is that what they want? Is that what people want for us? They want us to just be emotionless and just look at people. I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, I understand. I have the benefit of experience and wisdom in age to understand the value of people because I used to have these sensations and thoughts. And I can understand the value of people at an intimate level. What if you grow up without that knowledge? What if you never make that connection? Then how
Sad
do you
thing is,
view people?
I don't think we'll know until years after, because the childhood transitioning thing, it's more recent. I'd say like within the past
Well, I
10
think
years or so.
I think
We
you've
really don't
said
know what's
before,
gonna how
sad
they're
people,
gonna
sad,
end up.
angry. You said before you think that a lot of them are going to kill their parents because they're going to be mad at them for making the
I
decision.
said they're gonna be like Jim
Oh,
Rose.
That's what your favorite hypothesis is.
Yeah, I think they're gonna realize, holy shit, my parents did this to me. They were supposed to be the
that
ones guiding me.
yeah, because that's a betrayal. If these
Yeah.
people, these young ones, are transitioned, and it's because the parents allowed it, I'd probably be very angry myself if my parents put me in a situation which removed me from being able to function like a majority of my peers are able to. It's like, how would I be able to relate to somebody? Okay, like let's say somebody came to me and they were having like a relationship issue and they wanted to like, turn and use me as a sounding board, but I have no experience in what it is to have anything that they're going through. But then I start to question, it's not that I can't provide you with any relief to your situation. Now I'm curious, why can't I feel that? And then I start digging through my own past at that point. I'm like, at which point, you mean other people can feel something I can't? It's like a sexual lobotomy. And again,
Yeah.
I don't look at kids as sexual beings. These are kids have the potential to become adults who will have
Who will
a
in turn have.
sexual experience,
Yeah.
which would happen naturally.
Yeah.
There is all the progression of maturation. Removing a piece of that line breaks it off into an alternate path. And that's why I'm saying you don't have to take the drugs, nor do you have to undergo the surgeries to live your true authentic life. I personally, I don't want to wear dresses. I don't want to do the makeup. You know what? Quite frankly, it's too damn expensive. It's like I'd rather invest. I have stepkids. I'd rather invest in their future and, see them, even though they're not my biological kids. I'd rather focus on them rather than on myself and trying to pull off a facade that, was fun. Yeah, for a while because it was providing me some like emotional relief. However, it's like, I'm not going to continue living like that if what it's being turned into now, because quite frankly, part of my detrans experience was watching the whole thing get perverted. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I was like telling my therapist, I was like, there is no way that you can get me to feel good about acting as a role model for the trans community while doing this to kids. I was like, I'd rather not. And that was a percentage of what caused me to go back to living as a masculine expression, as masculine as this can be.
Mhm.
I don't want to serve as a permission slip for this kind of what I consider to be absolutely just is this my internalized transphobia talking? I mean, no, I am
No.
against child abuse. This has nothing to do with being trans or having transphobia. I am not cool with experimenting on kids when it comes down to it.
And personally that it can be misguided. The process can have good intentions and still be misguided and misinformed. And so why would we be doing it to kids if there's adults who can't even tell that they want to do it?
Yeah.
Think about when you were 13 to when you were 16. You did not have the same desires, no matter who you were.
No,
Exactly. So why would we be giving anyone in that time frame any medicalized surgeries, anything to change their hormones? Just give them a little more time and then they can do whatever they want.
Well, that's logical. They don't think logically.
But that's the thing. I know if you ask anyone, if you ask 13 versus 16, two completely different people, same person, but two different points in your life, two completely different goals out of life. And that's what I think people really need to focus on when it comes to like the transitioning of children. They're not solidified in what they're doing yet. Adults aren't even
No.
solidified in what they're doing yet most of the
But
time.
the activists say that there is a medical consensus that this saves lives.
It doesn't.
well, that medical consensus is not proven, number one. Number two, it's wrong. And it's not proven by time. It's
Right.
proven only in a small area of time
This medical
with
consensus
a
is not
few
verified.
individuals.
Mhm.
The sample is small. They're increasing the sample because they want to be right. And
Yeah.
at the same time,
Mhm.
that's a huge gamble. That's a very big gamble to take with a bunch of people who don't. And when I'm talking about people, I'm talking about kids.
Right.
And then they're adult, like their parents, who don't understand the long-term ramifications of
But
what
why
this
don't they care?
entails.
Well, didn't we?
Why don't they care about that?
Speaking of just
I-
real quick medical stuff, didn't we just find a report from one of them? Someone didn't file their report or their
Oh, the
study
10-year study that
on
cost
on children transitioning.
Yeah.
They said that the claim originally was that it causes them to succeed and do better when they transition.
it reduces suicidal
Yeah, there it
ideations
is.
and all that.
But they found
Perhaps,
out that it does nothing at best. At best, it doesn't change them at all.
So she
See-
didn't release the study.
okay, that's highly embarrassing for her. Okay. and highly detrimental to anyone who followed that, who thinks that they can use that as an excuse,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
just detrimental to I mean, I just think about it. It's like you go and you alter kids' physiology and or their chemical, or like what have you. They are going to be a lifelong patient. You're going to have to fake the hormones for the rest of the life in order to have a as natural of a life as possible, or you're going to induce menopause in a lot of these cases. You're going to, like in females, you're going to end up causing menopause at a young age because you've removed their ovaries.
Yeah.
And in males, you're going to induce like cancers. I mean, and these cancers, the blood clots, the stroke risk, the heart attacks, the diabetes. I mean, for Pete's sake, it's like there are so many things which can happen when you mess with a person's hormones, and when you're taking someone who is a biological sex and then having them espouse a gender which is incongruent with their biology, but you're trying to make it congruent to their thought process. You can hope and pray as much as you want, but you're still going to have side effects if you're messing with your hormones.
Yeah.
And you can't, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to like, oh, I've been diagnosed with freaking cancer because I messed with my hormones? Well, happy thoughts and rainbows aren't going to cure you. It's like you're having a stroke. And it's like, oh, your makeup looks fabulous on that one side of your face that isn't falling. It's like what the hell, Mary?
Yeah. Oh, dude.
They're so twisted. There's just so many activists out there who are in the limelight, whether they're in government or they're famous, who are pushing this shit because they think they know better, and they're just doing such a detriment, especially to children.
Oh. And then, speaking of activists, Dylan Mulvaney, okay, on The View with Whoopi Goldberg, okay? I heard him say, and I was like listening while I was doing dishes because I hand washed my dishes, and I dropped some silverware when I heard this. I just stepped into being trans, is what I believe he said. I don't know if you guys have that clip from The View, but he's like, I'm a baby trans. I just stepped into this about 3 years ago. I was like, what did you say? You just stepped into being trans like it was a freaking Vivian Westwood catsuit? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
you just start
we all
wearing
knew it.
womanhood?
But and this is the thing, and we were just talking about we all knew it, because if you look back to Dylan's like first days of girlhood, he's in the woods in some heels, tripping all over himself, being like, I'm a girl in the woods, so it's so evident that like this was a man, a gay man, but a man making fun of women, and then he got so much traction for it that he was like, fuck it, let's keep going.
Let's go all in.
He monetized it.
Yeah.
Monetized it and pushes it as genuine. And it's not. It's like these are the kind of activists, the reason why we don't have real transsexual activists, I'm going to tell you. When you're a real transsexual, you do it privately. You don't make it. You don't make a scene, because the whole point of transitioning is to pass.
Yeah.
The whole point of transitioning is because you're having an inner turmoil in your brain of identity incongruence, and the last thing you want to do when you're transitioning, and I can speak because I experienced this part, I didn't want to make it public.
Right?
I didn't want to like go and like, and there was a period where I'm talking to my therapist, I don't want to make my detransition public either. And you know what? I didn't get what I wanted. And why is that? Because more and more people are trying to make this okay. And I can't stand child abusers. I cannot stand people who predate on children. So I can't be quiet now. I don't want to be quiet now, because there are predators among us, and they're trying to get special treatment and permission from us to go and get in children's spaces. It's not just men getting into women's spaces. That's part of it.
Yeah.
That is definitely part of it.
But it's the kids.
It's the kids. It's like women, you can carry a mace, you can carry a weapon, you can do whatever, lady, whatever you need to do to protect yourself. I'm all for it.
Right.
It's like you need to defend yourself physically. I've got your back. I might even help you. It's like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not gonna be in your space anymore. It's like, even when I was in women's spaces, I had friends I would go with. If we went swimming, if I was asked by them, hey, Cosmetic, do you want to go swimming with us? Hey, yeah, sure. I don't know if they have like a family changing area. So if I have to go into the women's space with you, could you watch me? Because it's like, again, I may have had the surgeries and stuff, but my bone structure doesn't lie. My
Right.
musculature doesn't lie. It's like my pelvis doesn't lie and everything like that. It's like, I don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And I definitely don't want to be in front of kids in the nude. I don't care what the Krasensteins say, by the way, for those of you who may know. Like, oh, I'm sure that your kid has seen like your father's or your brother's dick or something like that. It's like, that's
No.
quite a bit different.
No.
Well, number one, exactly, Nina. No, that is not
Never
normal.
have.
Number one. Thank you. Number two, definitely not a stranger's dick.
Dude,
No,
amen.
okay.
That's
There's
YouTube.
something
That's
up,
YouTube
yeah.
safe. We can say dick on YouTube, can't we?
I think so. Yeah, why not?
Okay, good. Okay. Just, I'm not going to be quiet when the kids are in peril. And that's what they are. They're in peril. And people like McBride going and trying to soft sell transgenderism when
Mhm.
it's like, I don't even know what they even consider transgender anymore. I know that I'm a transsexual. I am a transsexual who has had the transsexual experience, and now I'm a eunuch who is back to living as close to male as I can be. And I am not going to sit by and be quiet and be called every hateful name in the book. Call me all the hateful names. I
Right,
don't
like,
care.
ooh, it hurts. It hurts when they call me transphobic. Oh my God. Like, really? I'm not 5.
No.
You know, the words
Right?
don't hurt. When I was growing up, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, they said sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. What happened to that?
Now words make you kill yourself.
Right? Like, what happened to that? What
Ah.
happened to, like, being like, yeah, I'm strong. I can handle people calling me names and being bullied. You know, when you're younger, it sucks. But as you get older, you're like, yeah, this is nothing. They're just words.
Dark comedy moment for just a moment, if I may.
Mhm.
I'm a strong, independent woman, but you called me a dude. Now I'm gonna suicide say,
Right.
please.
And like they're like, I'm a better version of a woman, except I'm gonna kill myself if you tell me I'm a man. Yeah, like so you know.
It's also contradictory.
Yeah, so
It's very,
know.
it's so manipulative, and just the very thing that they're trying to get us to accept as normal, and what they want to get us to accept when it comes to this stuff. It's like, no, man, this is predation. This is predation. This is predatory. This is
Mhm.
not the way that a healthy society exists. This is like, okay, you can be you, just be you by yourself and whoever loves you and stuff. Don't take innocence and corrupt it. Don't invite innocence into your spaces, because there are those of us out there who are going to probably end up stopping you at some point. I mean, just to be quite honest, it's like,
Yeah.
you're messing with society, and there are plenty of us in society who will not give you space. If your goal is to act out your fantasies on innocence and to groom them into becoming what I would say is your sex toy,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's not happening under people like my watch. We're not about to let, and you can call us hateful, and you know what? We do hate that.
Oh well.
We do hate that. We hate it because it's sick, because it's predatory. People, I'm not going to speak for these two ladies over here, but I will speak for myself. I hate what you're doing. I don't hate you. I believe that you are currently exercising in a mind state which is depraved and harmful, not only to who you target, but to yourself. So that's what I will say there is I hate that action of predation. Maybe it's because I was predated upon. Maybe it's because like when I was starting, I don't know if this is even gonna be part of it, but when I started on the farm, I was pretty ignorant to like what was going on growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
Pretty ignorant to the rest of the world. Had a great education system though. Excellent education. Got into the military and met my first groomer. And
That's
he groomed me with promises of money and popularity and excitement. And boy, did he deliver. He
And these
absolutely delivered.
groomers, they know they can sniff out people that they can prey on.
They
They
watch
they
us
just
when we get off the bus at
Yeah.
the like in Fort Hood, Texas. You get off at in processing, and apparently they sit there looking at the soldiers as they're getting off the bus, picking you out by height and body shape. And by the time you get to permanent party in the military, in the army, a lot of us are pretty damn rocking. I mean, we're rocking some like tight young bods, and that's what they're after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
and now they're doing it to kids
Yeah.
in
And now they're
elementary
doing it to kids
school.
in
Yeah.
elementary school. Yeah. Because we
And
allowed it.
people are allowing it. What
Because
the fuck?
we got distracted. I don't like it. I'll say this. This is what I like to think though. I'd like to believe that I was just distracted by my own BS in my life, that I wasn't noticing it until I noticed it. And that was 2008 when I saw kids at the Minneapolis Pride at Loring Park. I was like, wait a minute. It's like there's oral sex going on. There's kids.
Oh my
What
God.
the hell is going on here?
Ring tossed
would,
with dildos. You're seeing like grown men with their dicks out, like
Yes.
like right next to a fucking kid. Like, what are
In
you?
full leather. In
Yeah.
full leather, dog masks, fetish gear, rubber, whatever your kink is, whatever your fetish is, whatever you're into, and then the public sex on top of it. And here comes, I guess maybe maybe they're divorcees,
I think it's a lot
women
of
having
single,
midlife crises,
single
men having
mom,
midlife crises, like
single
wanting
parent.
to make friends. The fag hags. Can I say
Oh,
fag
man.
hags on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah.
Fag hags with kids. This is a problem. It's like,
Mhm.
lady, it's like
Get a
you have a
babysitter.
child. It's like, yes, get a babysitter. Don't bring your kid to what you know is going to be a raunchy experience. What
would
are
say-
you doing?
Pride is very like much like a nightclub. You know, you're going out, people are usually drinking, they're partying. It's what it is.
Yes.
Would you bring your child to a nightclub? Why are you bringing your child to Pride? You should get a babysitter. Just fucking get a babysitter.
Pride
And
has just
then-
become like a kink paraphilic parade of like the worst people. Like, seriously, I've seen so many dicks at watching pride parades. It's like, I've never seen so many dicks in my life. I'm a lesbian. I stay away from dicks. And now they're everywhere.
Right?
They're just out in public. And like, I know it was at the San Francisco Pride. This one guy was interviewing cops that were there. And he's like, there are men with penises right next to little kids' faces, and you're not doing anything about it. And the cops were like, well, as long as they're not masturbating. What?
Oh, come
Are you
on.
serious? This is where we've gotten? Really? Well, holy fuck. Slap my ass and call me Nancy. What the fuck? That is some bullshit. That is psychotic. And then I get all riled up about it.
I think it is something to get riled up about. I think it is something to get riled about because it's
That's what it
serious.
is.
It's a serious topic.
Yeah. It's insane that like anyone would be like, oh well, they're not touching their penises. So,
Oh, so that's fine.
so who's it gonna bother? Like
That is
everyone.
insane.
Everyone? No. Okay.
But that's
There
what
is
it
a thing in Minneapolis, or I don't know if it's still going on. I would like have to look it up, but there was a thing at the Gay 90s. It's a club in Minneapolis. And we had well, I shouldn't say we because I wasn't part of that troop, talking about as citizens of Minneapolis. Eggs and drag. It was a brunch. It was a family brunch where people could bring their kids to this brunch with the drag performers up on the stage. That I went with my husband, and I was like, I just kind of like wanted to check it out because he was thinking it like might be an interesting thing to like bring the kids to. And I was like, well, let's go check it out first because, you know, I'm
Right.
trying to, it's like, we're both sensible people And at the time, this is like early on when they were starting to bring the kids in and stuff like that. And so we had this brunch, and I was like, absolutely not. We're never going to bring the kids here ever. Because it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't family friendly. It was still raunchy. It was drag queens doing what
Right.
drag queens do. And they're female impersonators who make adult content and
Right.
jokes and things. And I was like, no, this isn't appropriate. And he agreed, to my happiness. He's a progressive. He's very progressive. I'm not. But we love each other. We're very
Yeah.
different people politically.
Mm.
We both agreed the kids can't be it. No, we're not going to bring the kids to this. And then we started seeing the things where the drag queens were going to libraries. The drag queens were like being brought out to a bunch of different public events and stuff. And all this normalization and the outfits. It would have been one thing, like, let's say if a drag queen or a female impersonator for that matter came out and was acting like, I don't know, maybe like Mary Poppins or something that a child could relate to. Maybe a Disney character where it's like the outfit is passable enough that you would never know it was a man. But no, what did we get instead? We got Gold LeMay nightmares with clearly the junk flopping out and just teaching kids how to twerk. And it's like, you are fully sexualizing kids. I already have a problem with toddlers and tiaras, even though in the beginning, I thought toddlers and tiaras was kind of cute. Until
Yeah,
I
then you
realized
notice
what
the pedophiles are in the audience. How many there are in the audience?
See, that is something right there that people often miss.
Right?
Is we're okay with kids in the privacy of their homes or certain settings mimicking adult behavior when they are in a controlled environment. Where the reason why we're not okay, like people like me are not okay with kids mimicking adult behavior in public, is because in public there are predators who can get information to find your kid. If you're at a school event and a predator is noticing that the teachers are allowing the students to mimic out adult behavior and not only view it, but also, what is the word I'm looking for? Not just condone, but promote.
Yeah.
Youth acting in an adult manner. It makes that person who coordinated it highly suspect, the people who are encouraging it to be highly suspect, and the people who don't question it to be highly suspect. But if you question it, the law may come after you. You may suffer legal ramifications if you dare to question it, because you are exhibiting, what is it, unconscious bias, or you're exhibiting some sort of hatred towards the person. It's like, it's not towards the person though. It's because you are corrupting innocence. And why are these people so hell-bent on corrupting innocence? Why do they need to remove innocence? Why do they need to remove childhood? What is their end goal? I have questions.
They want to fuck kids.
And
I mean,
that's exactly what it is. Because they're also saying that children can consent.
That's gross. Yeah. But yeah.
I wonder where that's going to go.
Yeah. Consent. Why do you want that? Why do you need them to consent? It's like, what do you want them to consent to? It's like, okay, so, and oh my gosh. It's like, oh my gosh. I remember when I was like younger, I heard some people who my parents kept me away from, and they mentioned a phrase that caused my dad to go absolutely nuts and just go into rage attack mode. And what the guy said was, if it bleeds, it breeds.
Oh, I've heard that shit before.
And my dad went freaking ballistic on this guy, and I didn't understand why at the time. And I don't know. I'd have to ask my sister.
Pedophile.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Yeah, and I think it was in regards to my sister or something like that. My sister and I are 11 months apart, and I think that's what it was. I was pretty young, so I didn't understand. Again, farm life in Wisconsin, no cable television, None of that back then, rotary dial telephone, no internet, none of that exposure. It's like the closest thing I ever came to like anything sexual is like maybe finding a Hustler magazine. It's like, but that was it. It's
Right.
like the rest of it was like you were riding your 10 speed, hanging out with your friends,
Being a kid.
playing charts and being a kid and stuff like that. It wasn't full of sexual information and all that. You were just developing at your own pace naturally and just, every once in a while maybe throwing on mama's pumps and going like parading around with a scarf, but only because you saw Ginger Grant do it on Gilligan's Island. Or maybe you saw like, something on television, like, maybe on PBS or something like that. You might have been like watching Zoom or whatever was happening on Sesame Street. And maybe they had like a slight, like a weird character on, like some weird Muppet or something like that. But it wasn't to groom you. It was just, they
It's like
were
a
doing
funny,
something.
haha.
Yeah, it's like comedy. It was just comedy. It was
Mhm.
never supposed to be a direction in where to go and take your life. But now it's like you can't even have comedy. You can't even like make fun of that stuff anymore because people are like, you're being hateful, you're being racist, misogynistic, bigoted, you're being toxic, blah, 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 whatever. It's like, well, you know what? I think that you're being small-minded. I think that you're the ones
it's critical too, because you got Dylan Mulvaney getting famous off of making fun of women pumping around and
made
dancing
fun
and
of
all that.
women.
Yeah,
Yes,
and it's hypocritical
absolutely.
now. Yeah. No, I mean, I had brothers and I had sisters growing up, and I had a little brother, and he used to dance around in my mom's heels and stuff. And he's very straight. He's doing his own thing. But the kids play dress up. It's what happens. I used to wear my dad's clothes around. I'm lesbian. It's just how it comes around. Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. Kids are going to play dress up. Kids are going to pretend to be their parents. They're going to pretend to do things that they see people around them doing. They all just grow up at their own speed. You don't need to push growing up faster on them. You don't need to take the innocence away from them. And it's like you said, they want to destroy it. But why? I don't get it either. You gotta be twisted to understand why they want to fuck with it, I think.
I think we all like down low key. I think we all know why. I don't want it to go any further. This needs to stop. This all needs that needs to stop. It's like there's way too much media out there which is available to kids, and then the defense of these books, they're like, oh, you can't have a book ban. It's like,
Oh my
you've
God.
read what's inside these books. It's like if you are, it's one thing to teach the biology of the body. It's like, okay, so the male contains something called sperm and the female contains something called eggs. And if you get the male and the female together and you cause an ejaculation to the female when she's ovulating, she may have a baby. And maybe you might want to plan that a little bit better and stuff like that. We're teaching you the basic biology of how your body functions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know how to give somebody a blowjob. I
How to
don't need to know how to get somebody to like
Grindr.
lubricate something to what's up?
How to get on Grindr and stuff like that. Yeah, you don't need.
Yeah,
to,
I don't even know. Is
FYI,
that part of the curriculum now?
Oh, well,
That was
if
in
you're
one of
reading
the
this book is
books.
gay, then yeah.
Oh my word. It's like the things that they're trying to get people, like kids. It's like, this is how you lubricate a butt plug, or like these are anal beads. It's like, why do you need to teach kids this?
Why indeed?
You know, as speaking as someone who's from the younger generation, it's gonna be like they're gonna find it on their own anyways. It's not like you need to teach it to them. They're gonna. That's the thing. It's gonna happen. And I was born and raised when the internet was still like it was available for kids, but it wasn't well regulated whatsoever. And let me tell you, they're gonna find it on their own. You don't need to tell them. You don't need to give them a book about it. They're gonna figure it out, and it's probably still gonna be too young. And but it's gonna be at their pace, and that's what it really comes down to.
Exactly. And the excitement, I mean, it's like this. It's like, oh my gosh, the taboo. Like when I was maturing, and it's like, and I was still like a virgin and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, that's dirty. And it's like that excitement, like, but as a young adult, I was like, still, even as it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the shock and surprise. And then, it's like,
they wonder
the
why young
excitement.
people aren't doing it anymore because they've over sexualized them. They've seen too much.
Yeah.
They what's the point for them?
So you give it like a person at a young age, like way too much information that they're not ready to have. And then that's another thing. I mean, we're not just talking about like removing a person's ability to maybe, I don't know, have a family someday because you sterilized the person, or because you've like mentally scarred the person because you were a parent who thought you were doing the right thing, only to find out later that now your kids got you in the kitchen at knife point because they're pissed. You know, the child's pissed because you cut them up, so now they're going to cut you up. It's like that kind of potential. But the idea that no one needs that much information. It's like, what's left in life if you have all the answers? It's like, if you have all the cheat codes and you can just cheat code your way through life, it's like, what's the point? And maybe that's the point right there. Maybe that is part of the agenda right there, is to just get people so freaking depressed that they just, everything's a self-deletion at that point. It's like, because what's left to live for if you've got all the answers and there's no more surprise. And I mean, this is what I fear, ladies. We're dealing with today's perverts. We're dealing with today's predators. What happens when you have a generation of people who can't get off on anything? What are they going to strive to get off on?
The scariest and darkest.
I don't
shit
even
possible.
want to think about.
But I mean, at the end of it's the scariest and darkest shit you can imagine, because it's like, it's just like the whole Epstein thing. You know, they keep going deeper because they run out of shit. They want to just, whatever's the next step. It's scary.
Mm-hmm. And if they normalize this, what's next? I mean, we can talk about slippery slopes. It's like we've now.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Slippery slopes. It's like, oh no, it kind of is.
Yeah, it most certainly is.
That's how we got here. 100%.
That's how we're here. That's why we're here. We should probably cut it here because our camera's gonna die.
Okay.
Our camera gets really hot very fast.
Yeah, those good old Sony Alphas.
I am Kevin, the co-host at No Prisoners Podcast. You can find us on pill.net. That would be pill.net/No Prisoners Podcast, all one word. We air live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you'd like to, come check us out. Thank you very much for having me, both Nina and Jesse. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'll talk to you later.
Yes.
Oh, why'd you have to go and do that? Thought we had a good thing going. Now I'm going to fall a little off track since you broke the mold. Take something for the pain and regret for having invested so much time.